Before we begin this detailed breakdown of the state opening of Parliament, make sure to subscribe to the channel, click the notification bell, and drop your thoughts in the comments section below to stay updated on all upcoming political and constitutional analysis. The state opening of Parliament is the principal constitutional event in the United Kingdom, marking the formal commencement of the parliamentary session. Behind the historic ceremonial procedures, heavy velvet robes, and the Imperial State Crown lies the strategic, long-term legislative agenda of the British government. The speech delivered by King Charles III outlined sweeping legislative reforms across economic policy, energy infrastructure, national defense, public services, housing, and constitutional governance. The ceremony begins with centuries-old traditions designed to represent the constitutional separation of powers between the monarchy, the House of Commons, and the House of Lords. Before the address takes place, an official ceremonial search of the Palace of Westminster basements is conducted by the Yeomen of the Guard to commemorate the discovery of the 1605 gunpowder plot. Simultaneously, an elected member of Parliament is held at Buckingham Palace as a ceremonial hostage to guarantee the sovereign's safe return to the Palace of Westminster. When the King arrives at Westminster, the royal procession moves toward the House of Lords chamber. The official known as Black Rod is dispatched to summon the members of the House of Commons. As Black Rod approaches the Commons chamber, the heavy oak doors are slammed closed in their face, a constitutional tradition established in 1642 to symbolize the absolute independence of the elected House of Commons from the monarchy. Black Rod strikes the door 3 times with their staff. The doors are opened, and members of Parliament, led by the Prime Minister and the Leader of the Opposition, walk together into the House of Lords to hear the sovereign's address. Economic stability and national growth form the core foundation of the legislative agenda. Central to this strategy is the Budget Responsibility Bill, which legally mandates that all significant tax and spending changes be subject to independent assessment by the Office for Budget Responsibility to prevent fiscal instability. To accelerate long-term capital investment, the National Wealth Fund Bill establishes a statutory funding mechanism designed to leverage private sector investment alongside public capital into key infrastructure, green manufacturing, and regional industrial projects. Energy strategy and environmental regulation are addressed through several key legislative proposals. The Great British Energy Bill establishes a publicly owned clean power company headquartered in Scotland to co-invest in renewable energy projects, including offshore wind, solar, and nuclear technologies. The Crown Estate Bill modernizes investment rules by granting borrowing powers to unlock significant new offshore wind seabed leases. Furthermore, the Water Special Measures Bill introduces tougher regulatory oversight for water utility companies, imposing criminal liability on executives for severe pollution breaches and granting regulators powers to restrict executive bonuses. Infrastructure and transport initiatives emphasize regional connectivity and public management. The Planning and Infrastructure Bill streamlines the consenting process for major development projects and reforms compulsory purchase compensation rules to accelerate housing and infrastructure delivery. On public transport, the Passenger Railway Services, Public Ownership Bill, and the broader Railways Bill allow train operating contracts to return to public ownership as current franchises expire, creating Great British Railways to manage track and train operations under a single public umbrella. Additionally, the Better Buses Bill gives local transport authorities expanded powers to franchise local bus networks and establish publicly owned operators. Employment, commercial standards, and worker protections are outlined in the Employment Rights Bill. This landmark legislation bans exploitative zero-hours contracts, ends the practice of fire and rehire, strengthens statutory sick pay, and enshrines day-one protections against unfair dismissal. Business sector reforms are further expanded through the Draft Audit Reform and Corporate Governance Bill, which replaces the Financial Reporting Council with a stronger regulatory authority, and the Product Safety and Metrology Bill, which updates compliance frameworks for advanced digital goods and online marketplaces. Public sector, health, and social welfare reforms represent another major component of the address. The Mental Health Bill modernizes statutory care standards to ensure patients receive dignified care with reduced detention rates. The Tobacco and Vapes Bill introduces a progressive phase-out of tobacco sales by raising the legal age to purchase cigarettes annually, alongside strict regulation of vaping marketing to minors. Education and skills are prioritized through the Children's Well-Being Bill, which mandates free breakfast clubs in primary schools, and the Skills England Bill, designed to restructure national vocational training in direct partnership with employers. Housing and tenancy rights are addressed through the Renters' Rights Bill, which abolishes no-fault Section 21 evictions, expands grounds for tenant protection, and applies mandatory living standards across the private rented sector. The Draft Leasehold and Commonhold Reform Bill moves to phase out new leasehold houses, cap existing ground rents, and facilitate the transition toward commonhold property ownership. Border security, public safety, and judicial administration are targeted through targeted enforcement bills. The Border Security, Asylum, and Immigration Bill establishes a new Border Security Command with counter-terrorism-style powers to combat organized human trafficking networks. The Crime and Policing Bill introduces stronger measures against shoplifting, antisocial behavior, and retail crime, while expanding knife crime prevention orders. Public safety at large events is reinforced through the Terrorism, Protection of Premises Bill, commonly known as Martin's Law, which places statutory security duties on venue operators. Constitutional and democratic updates form the final major pillar of the legislative program. The House of Lords, hereditary peers, bill removes the remaining statutory rights of hereditary peers to sit and vote in the upper chamber. The English Devolution Bill establishes a standardized framework to decentralize decision-making powers directly to combined regional authorities across England. Furthermore, the Hillsborough Law introduces a binding legal duty of candor on public servants and state authorities during public inquiries and inquests. The conclusion of the King's Speech signals the formal end of the ceremonial proceedings in the House of Lords. Following the monarch's exit, members of Parliament return to the House of Commons chamber to begin 5 days of structured debate on the contents of the address. The debate concludes with a formal division vote in the Commons, serving as an initial parliamentary test of confidence in the government's comprehensive legislative roadmap. The high-profile attendees and key power players beyond the monarch and the traditional ceremonial guards, the House of Lords chamber is packed with the UK's most powerful political, judicial, and diplomatic figures. Understanding who sits where reveals the unique constitutional setup of the United Kingdom. Seated alongside King Charles III on the throne is Queen Camilla, wearing the historic state diadem. Flanking the royal thrones are the great officers of state, including the Lord Great Chamberlain and the Earl Marshal, who are responsible for organizing royal ceremonies and state security. Filling the red benches on the floor of the House of Lords are the peers. This includes life peers, distinguished figures from politics, science, and public life, hereditary peers, and the Lords Spiritual, the 26 senior bishops of the Church of England, led by the Archbishop of Canterbury, representing the official state religion. Standing packed together behind the bar of the House are the key leaders from the House of Commons, led by Prime Minister Keir Starmer, alongside the leader of the opposition. They stand alongside senior cabinet ministers, including the Chancellor of the Exchequer, the Home Secretary, and the Foreign Secretary, who are responsible for executing the 37 laws outlined in the speech. Near the center of the chamber, dressed in traditional ceremonial robes and wigs, sit the justices of the Supreme Court of the United Kingdom, summoned by official writ to represent the highest authority of the judiciary. In the galleries surrounding the chamber sit high-ranking representatives of the diplomatic corps, foreign ambassadors, and high commissioners representing international allies and global partners. Their presence highlights the international significance of the military, trade, and foreign policy measures announced in the address. Together, these figures represent the complete union of the executive, the legislature, the judiciary, the monarchy, and international diplomacy, gathered in a single room for the defining moment of British governance. King Charles III arrives at the Palace of Westminster. As the Irish state coach pulls up under the Victoria Tower, King Charles III arrives at the sovereign's entrance of the Palace of Westminster. Escorted by the sovereign's cavalry of the Household Division, this arrival marks the culmination of the royal procession from Buckingham Palace down Whitehall. Notice as the king steps out of the carriage, the national anthem plays, and a 41-gun salute is fired in Green Park to announce his official arrival. Above the Palace of Westminster, the Union flag is immediately lowered, and the royal standard is hoisted to signify that the sovereign is officially inside the building. At the sovereign's entrance, His Majesty is received by key royal officials, including the Lord Great Chamberlain and the Earl Marshal. The king then walks up the royal staircase, passing between two lines of dismounted troopers from the household cavalry, known as the Staircase Party. Dressed in full uniform with drawn swords, this party holds the unique privilege of being the only armed troops permitted inside royal palaces. From here, King Charles moves directly into the robing chamber. Inside, he will put on the crimson parliamentary robe of state and the Imperial State Crown, which was transported earlier from the Tower of London under armed military guard, before making his way into the House of Lords to deliver the royal address. Charles III and Queen Camilla process into the House of Lords after completing the robing ceremonial in the robing room. Having fully robed in the private robing chamber, King Charles III and Queen Camilla begin their formal procession through the royal gallery and into the House of Lords. His Majesty is now wearing the historic Imperial State Crown, set with over 2,800 diamonds, along with the heavy crimson velvet robe of state, originally created for King George VI. Notice the young pages of honor walking directly behind the king in scarlet coats and white satin waistcoats, carefully holding the long train of the king's parliamentary robe. Beside him, Queen Camilla wears the George IV state diadem, a stunning piece set with over 1,300 diamonds, along with her robe of state. As they hold hands and move steadily toward the throne, the entire House of Lords chamber rises in complete silence. The weight of the crown and the ceremonial robes signifies that the monarch has assumed his full constitutional role. In just a few moments, the king will take his seat upon the sovereign's throne to summon the House of Commons and deliver the royal address.
Baby season.
Mr. Speaker, the King commands this noble House to attend His Majesty immediately in the House of Peers.
Inside the House of Commons chamber, Black Rod, the monarch's official messenger, delivers the royal command to the Speaker of the House. Holding the traditional ebony staff, Black Rod informs the Speaker that His Majesty the King commands the presence of the members of Parliament in the House of Lords. With the summons formally delivered, the Speaker of the House of Commons, Sir Lindsay Hoyle, steps out from the chair, led by the Sergeant-at-Arms carrying the ceremonial royal mace. The Speaker leads the procession out of the Commons chamber. Walking directly behind the Speaker are the Prime Minister, the Leader of the Opposition, and cabinet ministers from all political parties. They move together down the central lobby toward the House of Lords to assemble behind the bar of the House and hear King Charles III deliver the government's legislative program. Now comes one of the most solemn constitutional traditions of the entire ceremony. The Lord Chancellor approaches the sovereign's throne, carrying a decorative silk purse containing the official printed text of the royal address. Observing centuries of tradition, the Lord Chancellor ascends the steps of the throne and kneels before King Charles III, presenting the King's speech on bended knee. Although the speech is written entirely by the government, it is delivered to the sovereign to be read aloud to both houses of Parliament assembled. Once King Charles receives the parchment, he unfolds the document to outline the government's 37 legislative bills for the new parliamentary session.
And volatile world threatens the United Kingdom, with the conflict in the Middle East only the most recent example. Every element of the nation's energy, defense, and economic security will be tested. My government will respond to this world with strength and aim to create a country that is fair for all. My ministers will take decisions that protect the energy, defense, and economic security of the United Kingdom for the long term. They will defend the British values of decency, tolerance, and respect for difference under our common flag. And they will harness the potential of the pride felt across this country for its communities. My government will take urgent action to tackle anti-Semitism and ensure all communities feel safe. My government believes that the United Kingdom's economic security depends on raising living standards in every part of the United Kingdom. My ministers will support measures that maintain stability and control the cost of living. They will use public investment to shape markets and attract further private investment. They will deploy the power of an active state in partnership with business and enable reforms that support higher growth and a fair deal for working people. My government believes that improved trading relations are vital for the United Kingdom's economic security, for significantly raising economic growth, and for lowering prices for working people. My ministers will introduce legislation to take advantage of new trading opportunities, including a bill to strengthen ties with the European Union. My government will also support the economic security of British businesses. Legislation will be introduced to tackle late payments and to reduce the burden of unnecessary regulation through innovation. The United Kingdom's economic security depends upon world-class infrastructure. Legislation will be introduced to unlock the benefits of airport expansion, enable roads to be built at pace, including the Lower Thames crossing, and deliver a fair deal for the north of England through Northern Powerhouse Rail. My ministers will continue to take all action necessary to safeguard the domestic production of steel. My government will also improve the United Kingdom's security by continuing to invest in the renewal of public services. My ministers will push forward with significant reforms to the police, the National Health Service, and to the criminal justice system to help them deliver services the British people expect. Legislation will be introduced to increase confidence in the security of the immigration and asylum systems. My government will improve critical infrastructure with legislation to clean up the water industry and establish Great British Railways. My government believes that the United Kingdom should be a country fair for all and a place where every child is included in the nation's highest aspirations. My ministers believe that every child deserves the chance to succeed to the best of his or her ability and not be held back due to poverty, special educational needs or a lack of respect for vocational education. My ministers will continue to invest in apprenticeships and measures that tackle youth unemployment. They will respond to the Milburn Review and the Timms Review and continue to reform the welfare system to support both young and disabled people to flourish in work as the basis for long-term economic security. A bill will be brought forward to raise standards in schools and introduce generational reforms of the special educational needs system. My ministers will also proceed with the introduction of digital ID that will modernize how citizens interact with public services. Alongside strong public services and a strong economy, the highest standards of trust in public office are essential for the social contract and the United Kingdom's collective security. My government will introduce the Hillsborough Law to bring forward a duty of candour for public servants. My ministers will also introduce legislation to enable peerages to be removed. My government will bring forward proposals that strengthen the delivery, accountability, innovation, and productivity of the civil service. These proposals will also seek to safeguard its impartiality and core values to enhance trust and confidence in the institutions of government. My government will bring forward a bill to speed up remediation for people living in homes with unsafe cladding and a draft bill to ban abusive conversion practices. In this volatile world, my government will continue to pursue foreign policy based on a calm assessment of the national interest. It will continue its unflinching support for the brave people of Ukraine who fight on the front line of freedom. My ministers will seek to improve relations with European partners as a vital step in strengthening European security. It will continue to promote long-term peace in the Middle East and the two-state solution in Israel and Palestine. My government will also uphold the United Kingdom's unbreakable commitment to NATO and our NATO allies, including through a sustained increase in defence spending. My government will seek to reinforce the long-term energy, defence and economic security of the United Kingdom as an essential component of strength on the world stage. This will include housing, which can be a source of insecurity for many people. My ministers will bring forward legislation to increase long-term investment in social housing and to reform the leasehold system, including the capping of ground rents. My government will introduce legislation to tackle the growing threat from foreign state entities and their proxies. They will respond to the horrific attack in Southport with measures to protect the British people from extreme violence and honour the victims, the injured and their families. My ministers will also introduce legislation to improve the country's defences against cybersecurity threats. My government will support our gallant armed forces and their families who make considerable personal sacrifices for the collective security and freedom of everyone in the United Kingdom. My ministers will recognise this service with an armed forces bill that improves the service justice system and establishes the Armed Forces Covenant in statute. My ministers believe that energy independence must be a long-term goal of national security and that the nation's energy security requires long-term investment and reform, as demonstrated by recent events in the Middle East. Increased production of clean British energy will help to ensure that enemies of the United Kingdom cannot attack the economic security of the British people. My ministers will therefore introduce an energy independence bill to scale up homegrown renewable energy and protect living standards for the long term. My ministers will also take forward recommendations of the nuclear regulatory review and encourage a new era of British nuclear energy generation. My government will remain a leading advocate for tackling climate change and achieving a world free from poverty. The United Kingdom will also take action to reduce humanitarian need and conflict around the world. My ministers will champion the rights of women and girls to live in a world free from violence. This will include promoting women's full economic and political participation within their societies, with agency over the decisions that impact their lives. Next year, the United Kingdom will take on the G20 presidency and host the G20 summit to drive global growth and reinforce global stability, which is essential for the prosperity of working people across the country. My government is committed to the strength and integrity of the Union of the United Kingdom and will continue to work closely with the devolved governments to deliver for citizens across the whole of the nation. Members of the House of Commons, estimates for the public services will be laid before you. My Lords and members of the House of Commons, other measures will be laid before you. I pray that the blessing of Almighty God may rest upon your councils.
With the address complete, the Lord Chancellor steps forward once more to retrieve the reading manuscript from His Majesty. King Charles III and Queen Camilla now stand to begin the formal royal departure. Joined hands and flanked by their pages of honor, the King and Queen process out of the House of Lords chamber, as all assembled peers, judges, and dignitaries bow in respect. The royal procession moves back through the royal gallery toward the robing room, where the monarch will unrobe before departing the Palace of Westminster for Buckingham Palace. Outside, as the king leaves the building, the royal standard flag is lowered and replaced by the Union flag. Inside Parliament, the ceremonial proceedings are officially concluded, and the political work begins. Members of Parliament now head back to the House of Commons chamber to start 5 days of intense legislative debate on the government's newly announced roadmap. Following the conclusion of the royal address, members of Parliament make their way back down the corridor from the House of Lords through the central lobby and return to the House of Commons chamber. As the MPs retake their seats on the green benches, the ceremonial aspect of the day comes to an end, and the real political work of the parliamentary session begins. Before debating the speech itself, the House of Commons performs one final constitutional tradition, reading the Outlawries Bill. This symbolic procedure demonstrates the Commons' legal right to deliberate on its own private business before taking up the government's legislative proposals. With traditions complete, the Speaker calls the House to order, as Prime Minister Keir Starmer leads off 5 consecutive days of intense parliamentary debate on the contents of the 2026 King's Speech. Having returned to the robing room to remove his heavy crimson robes of state and the Imperial State Crown, King Charles III, now in full naval uniform, processes back down the royal gallery alongside Queen Camilla. Pausing briefly along the route, Their Majesties exchange warm greetings with senior parliamentary officers and distinguished guests before continuing toward the exit. Passing a guard of honor formed by the household cavalry, the King and Queen reach the sovereign's entrance beneath Victoria Tower. Outside, a royal salute is rendered as Their Majesties step into the waiting Irish state coach to begin their formal carriage procession back to Buckingham Palace. With the sovereign's departure, the royal standard flying high above Parliament is lowered, bringing the ceremonial opening of the state session to its official conclusion. With the sovereign now on his way back to Buckingham Palace, a second crucial procession takes place inside Parliament, the departure of the royal regalia. Carried with solemn dignity through the royal gallery, the Imperial State Crown, resting on its velvet cushion, is escorted alongside the sword of state and the cap of maintenance. At the sovereign's entrance, the regalia are carefully placed inside the Queen Alexandra's state coach. Accompanying the jewels inside the carriage are their designated official custodians and ceremonial guards, tasked with ensuring their safekeeping. Escorted by a special detachment of the household cavalry, the regalia coach now departs the Palace of Westminster, bound for Buckingham Palace, before the priceless treasures are returned to their home at the Tower of London.